Mazda's little MX-30 e-Skyactiv R-EV is a plug-in hybrid, but a very different one. The rotary engine's unique, never drives the wheels, and constantly defers to an electric motor offering 53 miles of range. Sounds promising. It's been a very long time since we've seen a Mazda with a rotary engine. That Wankel technology inextricably linked with the brand, who produced more than 2 million rotary engines between the launch of the Mazda Cosmo in 1967 and the end of production of the RX-8 sports car in 2012. Since then, rotary tech's been absent from the company's lineup, but now it's back. The MX-30 e-Skyactiv R-EV model that arrived here in late 2023 is effectively the range extender version of that car. That's a description which might conjure up memories of the old BMW i3 range extender model, which had a rather crude little motorbike engine stacked out back to noisily cut in when the EV batteries were depleted. As we'll see, Mazda's R-EV tech is a great deal more sophisticated than that. In fact, the rotary engine it uses never directly powers the wheels. Sounds intriguing. To find out more, you're going to need the usual comprehensive car and driving review. So at last, another Mazda with a rotary engine. What's it like? Well, you push the start button, there's a background bong, and the dial needles ahead of you perambulate before coming to rest. The needle on the left gauge eventually settling on top of the purple charge zone as a green ready signal illuminates. Shift the little gear selector to the left, then down into D, and you're ready. But for what? We quite liked the ordinary full electric MX-30 when we first tried it, but wondered who would live with a real world driving range figure of not much more than 100 miles. The official figure's 124 miles, but we never got close to that when we tested this car in EV form. This R-EV plug-in hybrid version seems a much better all-round proposition. Its 17.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack offering 53 miles of pure EV mileage before a little single-rotor 830cc 73 horsepower rotary Wankel petrol engine pipes in and adds a further 320 miles of range. Rather like Nissan's e-Power system, though that can't be plugged in, the engine isn't there to directly power the wheels. Instead, via a generator, its role is to create energy for the 168 horsepower electric motor, which, aided by 260 newton meters of torque, ultimately powers the car. There are 3 selectable driving modes: normal, EV and charge. Normal uses the electric motor alone and keeps the rotary engine switched off until the battery charge level drops below 43% or the throttle is used in a spirited fashion. EV mode forces the car to keep the engine switched off for even longer, and charge merely uses the engine to rather inefficiently and somewhat noisily charge the battery. You can set a target charge level in 10% increments. Regardless of which drive mode you choose, top speed is limited to an extremely modest 86 miles an hour, but 62 miles an hour is dispatched in a rather more eager 9.1 seconds, fractionally faster than the full EV model. Like its EV counterpart, the R-EV version of this MX-30 is a lovely thing to drive in town. Thanks for this is down to the high driving position, the firm responsive brakes, and most notably, a beautifully engineered suspension setup, in comparison to which a ride over tarmac tears in a Mini Cooper electric feels like sliding down an ice slope on a tin tray. The springs here absorb potholes and speed humps with the composure of a really sophisticated multi-link damping system, but turn out to be merely part of a crude old McPherson strut and torsion beam arrangement. Crucially though, that's bolted into the advanced Skyactiv vehicle architecture pioneered by the current Mazda 3, which is designed to absorb energy and impacts from the road surface, damping it through the body structure. Get beyond the city limits and handling's inevitably limited by the kind of prodigious weight you might be surprised at in a car this small. The curb weight figure of 1,881 kilograms is 131 kilograms heavier even than the somewhat portly MX-30 EV. To give you some perspective, a similarly sized Peugeot 2008 conventional combustion-powered small SUV can weigh less than 1.2 tonnes, all of which you feel through the turns, though to be fair, body roll is decently controlled for an SUV, with grip through the corners aided by an eGVC electric G-Vectoring Control Plus system. We could do with a bit more steering feedback though. Out of the suburbs, you can help things along with proactive use of these steering wheel paddle shifters. They're not, of course, for gear changes. Like every EV, this one has a single-speed auto, but instead allow you to vary between 5 preset levels of regenerative braking. As usual, the heavier settings, intended for use away from the highway, allow greater levels of regenerative energy harvesting, though not quite enough to create the kind of one-pedal effect promoted by some of this model's EV rivals, where you hardly ever need to use the actual brake pedal to slow down. The slowing effect here is very noticeable though, and useful at speed into a fast corner where it's a bit like using the paddle shifter to select a slightly lower gear. In summary, there's a lot we like about the engineering behind this MX-30, layers of care and design sophistication that only begin to peel away once you get to know this Mazda and live with it. Despite all that, we couldn't live with the restricted battery mileage of the full EV version. But this extended range R-EV model's a different proposition in that regard, which makes it well worth a second look. All versions of the MX-30 e-Skiactiv R-EV feature a rotor badge on the front wings and an e-Skiactiv R-EV badge on the tailgate. Plus, this PHEV variant gets unique 18-inch wheels. Otherwise, you're going to struggle to differentiate it from the ordinary full-electric MX-30 model, which offers its own unique expression of the brand's usual so-called Kodo design theme, here apparently emphasising the car's beauty as a solid mass. This MX-30's length and width dimensions are virtually identical to those of Mazda's conventional CX-30 compact crossover, but this EV stands taller, with a high waistline and boldly upright A-pillars. At the rear, a contrast-coloured panel surrounding the glass house arches into the tailgate, which is decorated with LED tail lights featuring the same cylindrical design used in the headlamps. At the front, Mazda thankfully hasn't followed the design trend that gives EV models ugly blanked-off nose sections where the grille would normally be. The grille in place here is flanked by silver trim strips, almost like eyebrows, that flow into cylindrically designed LED headlamps that, on this top model, get a unique adaptive lighting signature. As for the really interesting bit with this R-EV model, well, that lies here beneath the bonnet, where a rotary engine now fills the empty space that is left under the hood of the electric model beside the drive motor. But the even more interesting bit is yet to come, and it lies with the way that you access this car via its interesting freestyle doors with their custom designed hinges. You open the front one conventionally, it pulls out to an angle of 82 degrees, and it has to be open if you're to access the rear door, which you might find to be a bit of a nuisance. For rearward access, you pull on this mid-level interior catch to open the rear door, which opens backwards to 82 degrees, at which point you really get the whole pillarless concept being offered here, the absence of the usual central B-pillar, making it much easier to load in things like buggies or wheelchairs, or to strap small children in at the back. It's one of the things that might easily really sell this car to you. Now, we'll take a closer look in the rear in a moment, but first, let's see what the front of cabin experience has to offer. Well, it's very Mazda, with a high-set, quite commanding driving position, impressive levels of build quality, and an airy, spacious feel from the horizontally orientated dash. there's very little to set this REV version apart from its EV stablemate. The right-hand gauge gains a needled petrol readout, and your combined petrol and EV range displays to the left of the centre screen. That's about it. Otherwise, it's just the same interior we liked with the original electric version of this model. Interesting design flourishes are mostly connected, appropriately on an EV, to the use of completely natural materials. This felt-like door fabric is fashioned from recycled bottles. The seats above base trim are partly upholstered in vegan leather. And most curiously of all, there's the decision to coat the cup holder, lids, the lower part of the centre console and the inside of the door pulls in, of all things, cork. A reference to Mazda's beginnings just over a century ago in cork production. The brand was founded as the Toyo Kogyo Cork Company in 1920. There's no real centre stack, just this 7-inch lower display for the climate functions. And in a break from the norm, the main infotainment monitor, this upper 8.8-inch Mazda Connect setup, isn't a touchscreen. Instead, as usual with models from the brand, you control it with this separate lower multimedia commander dial, which is much more intuitive and safer than stabbing away at a central monitor. As usual, Mazda's Jinba Itai human-centric approach to cabin design makes it pretty easy to find a near-perfect driving position, and through the grippy 3-spoke sports steering wheel, you view an instrument cluster comprising 2 outer analog dials separated by a 7-inch round TFT display, usually used for a virtual speedometer, but also selectable using this silver wheel-mounted info button as a drive assist graphic. Rear 3/4 visibility isn't great, but you get a parking camera to compensate. The seats are supportive, and you comfortably rest your elbow on this adjustable central armrest. Below that is a large open stowage area. Talking of stowage, there's plenty of it. True, the door bins aren't very big, but there's a big glove box, an upper sunglasses compartment, a cubby by your right knee, and this large lower area which has twin USB ports, and on this top model a 3-pin AC 220-volt socket too that will allow users to run electrical items at up to 1500 watts. Right, we promised you a look in the rear. Now you'll have to slide the front seat right forward as you'd have to on a 3-door hatchback or coupe, just to create enough space to get in. Now you do that by pressing on this button on the seat back, which slides the seat right forward, right towards the front, but not by quite far enough to make rearward entry especially easy. It doesn't get much better once you're inside. Roof height's obviously better than it would be in a hatch or a coupe. There's 939mm of rear headroom, encouraging you to think that a couple of adults might be berthed here for shorter trips, but they'd probably find the experience a touch on the claustrophobic side, thanks to the fact that you're only favoured with these 2 small porthole style windows which can't be opened. At least legroom is better than you might have feared it would be when clambering back here. There's 861mm of it, but the seat base is rather flat, so there's very little thigh support. Mazda hasn't tried to win kids over by placing USB ports back here, but it has provided small door bins with bottle holders and positioned this rear bench a little above the level of the front seats so as to give younger folk a slightly better view out. You won't often be trying to fit 3 passengers of any kind in the rear of this car. Though the centre transmission tunnel is quite low, there isn't really the cabin width for that, so there'll be unfettered use of this central armrest with its twin cup holders. You only get 1 seat back pocket on the passenger side. Let's finish with a look at luggage space. The cargo area at the rear can't be accessed by a powered tailgate, even on this range-topping variant, the hatch rising to reveal a 350-litre boot. That figure falls to 332 litres on this top Makoto variant because, as you can see when we lift the cargo base, the subwoofer for this variant's Bose sound system takes up some of the compartmentalised space under here. Now, even without it, there's nowhere to store the 2 charging leads, or even one of them, so annoyingly they must flop around on the boot floor, an astonishingly basic design oversight. If you get a puncture, then there's no help for you other than a can of sealant. In the main boot area, recesses are provided to the left and right, which should mean something like a golf club bag would fit lengthwise, but there's quite a high lip over which you'll have to lift it, which can't be compensated for with any kind of height adjustable boot floor. There's no 12-volt socket, but on this top spec version, Mazda's provided something much better, a 1500-watt 3-pin AC 220-volt socket that can be used to power external devices, a fridge for instance. Mazda hasn't bothered to follow the trend towards 40-20-40 split seat backs, nor is a ski hatch provided, so you won't be able to take long items like skis if a couple of passengers are residing in the rear. Folding the 60-40 split rear backrest boosts luggage room to 1,155 litres, or 1,137 litres with this Bose equipped top model, and the space revealed is almost flat. At the time of our test in spring 2024, this MX-30 e-Skyactiv R-EV was priced from around £35,000 with base prime line trim, £3,500 more than the equivalent full electric MX-30 model. Mazda expects the majority of sales, around 44%, to come from mid-range exclusive line trim, for which at the time of this test you would have needed just under £37,000. This top Makoto version required around £39,000 from you at the time of filming. If you do stretch to Makoto trim, you can pay £200 extra for special dark grey cloth upholstery with either black or, as in this case, brown leatherette inserts. For this kind of money, there are a huge number of similarly sized EVs, PHEVs or full hybrid models to consider. But there's nothing quite like the kind of combination an MX-30 e-Skyactiv R-EV gives you of EV and combustion power. If you're impressed by that, then you'll want to take a look at standard specs, so let's consider that now. All e-Skyactiv R-EV models get 18-inch alloy wheels plus full LED headlights with high beam control, LED rear combination lights, auto headlamps and wipers, all-round parking sensors, an alarm, power folding mirrors and a very complete tally of camera safety kit, which we'll brief you on in a moment. Inside, you get the usual comprehensive level of Mazda media tech, which gives you an 8.8-inch Mazda Connect color entertainment display on the center stack with a separate lower multimedia commander dial, the use of which is much easier than stabbing away at a touchscreen, which is what most rivals make you do. This media setup includes a navigation system with 5 years of free European map updates, plus Apple CarPlay and Android Auto smartphone mirroring, integrated Bluetooth and an 8-speaker DAB audio system. And that's just the start of the screen tech. Through the leather-stitched multifunction steering wheel, you view a 7-inch TFT colour display on the instrument panel, and there's another 7-inch colour touchscreen for climate control settings. Right, other standard features, well, they include a reversing camera and a leather-wrapped shift lever. Now, driving stuff includes Mazda's electric G Vectoring Control Plus system, that's for extra cornering traction, and the adaptive Mazda Radar Cruise Control setup, which comes with intelligent speed assist, enabling it to adapt the car to the speed limits that you're passing through. All MX-30 customers also get the easy-to-install My Mazda app, which can be used to remotely start or stop charging and to remotely control cabin climate. Additionally, you can use it to send a navigation route to your car from your tablet or PC, or to lock the doors remotely. If you can afford more, mid-range exclusive line trim is marked out by rear privacy glass, a diamond cut wheel rim finish and shiny piano black finishing for the B and C pillars. Plus, at this level in the range, you also get a frameless auto dimming rear view mirror, heated front seats, part leatherette upholstery and smart keyless entry. Now to that, this top Makoto variant adds the real niceties, things like adaptive LED headlights, plus there's a powered tilt and slide sunroof, a heated steering wheel and a front wiper de-icer. You also get some extra camera safety kit and a 360-degree view monitor with cameras at the front, rear and side, and a 12-speaker Bose surround sound system with Bose Centerpoint, bass match and audio pilot technology. This top variant also gets two 1500 watt 3-pin AC 220 volt sockets, one up front and one in the boot, that can be used to power external devices. We'll finish as usual with a look at safety provision. Now, you might worry that a car without the inherent chassis rigidity of a central B-pillar might not stand up too well in an impact. To guard against any issues here, this MX-30's centre pillarless construction incorporates a process by which hot stamped material is first attached to multifaceted reinforcing material before both are formed together into the A-pillar and roof side shapes. Ultra-high tensile steel combines with energy-absorbing structures throughout, and hot stamped vertical reinforcements are positioned inside the rear doors. The result is a structure that absorbs and effectively diffuses impact energy from side collisions. And just to make sure, Mazda has reinforced the front and rear door hinges as well as the side sills, creating body strength and energy absorbing efficiency on a par with cars that have central pillars. On top of this basically strong level of structural integrity, plus the usual airbags, e-core system and support for traction, stability and braking, Mazda has added a full suite of its various iActiv Sense, active safety and collision avoidance features. These include the smart brake support front autonomous braking system, which has specific pedestrian detection and includes an additional turn across traffic function to help prevent collisions when turning across traffic at junctions. When turning right at a junction, the forward sensing camera and millimeter wave radar sensors monitor oncoming traffic. When the system determines there's a chance of a collision occurring, it automatically applies the brakes to help prevent an impact and to mitigate any damage that may occur. Also included is emergency lane keeping with road keep assist. With this, when travelling at speeds of over 37 miles an hour, the forward sensing camera monitors curbs, grass and other natural verges along the edges of unmarked roads. When the system determines there may be a chance of the vehicle drifting off the road, it assists the driver with preventative steering operations. At over 37 miles an hour, emergency lane keeping with blind spot assist takes over. Now this system uses a 24 GHz millimeter wave radar sensor to monitor the areas behind and to the sides of the car when travelling at higher speeds. If the driver steers to change lanes when there's a threat of colliding with a vehicle approaching from the rear, the system assists steering operations to help prevent impact or mitigate any potential damage. It can even keep the car in the right track in the absence of lane markings. And of course the MX-30 R-EV gets all the camera features you might be familiar with from recent Mazda 3 or Mazda CX-30 models. There's a blind spot monitoring system which aims to stop you from pulling away or pulling out of a junction dangerously in front of another vehicle. A lane departure warning system will warn you that your vehicle is crossing line delineating lines at speed, at which point lane keep assist will apply subtle steering lock to ease the car back to where it ought to be. Rear cross traffic alert alerts you to approaching vehicles when you're reversing out of a space. And a traffic sign speed limit feature will picture the road signs you pass and display them on the dash. Earlier we referenced high beam control that automatically dips your headlights for you at night. And we also mentioned the Mazda radar cruise control system that automatically keeps you a safe distance behind the car in front on the highway and can, if necessary, even remotely slow you right down to a stop and start you off again if you come across a tailback. A distance and speed alert feature enables the vehicle to provide alerts for preset following distances, and a pedal misuse alert system that alerts the driver when the accelerator and brake pedals are depressed simultaneously. If you want more safety kits, you'll need to stretch to the very top of the range. This top Makoto variant includes 5 further camera-driven features. There's FCTA, or Front Cross Traffic Alert, which detects vehicles approaching from the blind spots on the front, left and right sides of the car when you start to drive off at an intersection. FCTA then notifies the driver of possible danger using audible and dash display warnings. There's also DM, driver monitoring, basically an even more sophisticated version of the driver attention alert setup we mentioned earlier. The DM system utilising a camera and infrared LED monitor to oversee the driver's condition both day and night, even if he or she happens to be wearing sunglasses. A Makoto spec MX-30 R-EV also comes with 2 more useful smart brake support features. One is SBSR, or Smart Brake Support Rear, which anticipates an impending rear-end impact, minimising its effects. Plus, it can automatically brake the car if you're about to reverse into something. There's also SBSRC, or Smart Brake Support Rear Crossing, which builds on the functionality of the rear cross traffic alert system that we mentioned earlier, with autonomous braking if warnings go unheeded. Finally, with this top model, there's Mazda's contribution to the current trend towards semi-autonomous driving, CTS, or Cruising and Traffic Support. CTS automatically operates the accelerator and brake pedals to maintain a proper trailing distance between the car and the vehicle ahead, which is great not only at cruising speeds, but when you're stuck in a traffic jam. In addition, it assists with steering operations to keep you in lane, though you have to keep your hands on the wheel at all times. We gave you this car's total 373 mile combined driving range figure earlier, with 53 miles of that being on pure battery power. In other words, this MX-30 e-Skyactiv R-EV will go 3 times as far as the ordinary full battery MX-30 model manages between charges, the EV version's rated at just 124 miles. Of course, with this R-EV, you've got to put fuel in, but you won't be doing that very often. Mazda claims the usual Fairyland combined cycle 3-figure PHEV fuel reading, in this case 282.5 miles to the gallon. You won't, of course, get anything like that in real use. On this test, we've been getting around 48 miles to the gallon, but you could easily push that up into the 60s or even early 70s with continual battery replenishment and restrained use. Conversely, if you forget to regularly charge the battery, you'll be lucky to see the right side of 40 miles to the gallon. You can thank the prodigious 1.8-tonne curb weight for that. Perhaps more relevant is the quoted CO2 result, 21 grams per kilometre, which means you'll be BIK tax rated at 8%. It's 2% for the ordinary EV MX-30. There's a 50-litre fuel tank, and you can monitor efficiency in various ways via the information section of the centre screen. A drive efficiency monitor graphically shows fuel and energy efficiency history and gives you average fuel and energy efficiency figures. On this test, we've been achieving around 3.8 miles per kilowatt of energy consumption. Mazda says that engine efficiency has been improved here by the use of direct fuel injection, which reduces the tendency for the fuel and air mixture to collect at the back of the combustion chamber without fully combusting. An exhaust gas recirculation system also features, which operates mainly at low revs to prevent cooling loss, which previously was an issue with rotary power plants, which have a greater surface area than piston engines of equivalent capacity. Previous rotary engines suffered from rotor tip wear, but Mazda says that's been mitigated here by the use of wider 2.5mm seals. What about charging? Well, when you're out and about, this Mazda can DC recharge at between 36 and 50 kilowatts, allowing for a rapid public charger top-up in about 25 minutes, the same as for the EV variant. This R-EV model's quicker to AC charge at home than its EV stablemate though. A full Mode 3 cable charge from a 7.2 kilowatt garage wall box takes an hour and a half. It's 3 hours for the full EV. Plugged into a domestic socket, this R-EV would need 4 hours 50 minutes to charge, 4 hours 40 minutes quicker than the EV. There's a high voltage battery monitor section on the center screen, which will reference the charging schedule you've set, and if the car's plugged into a wall box or socket, tell you the estimated AC charge time remaining. The same screen also tells you battery charge level, total range and EV range. Service intervals are in line with the rest of the Mazda lineup, so every 12,500 miles or every 12 months, whichever comes first. Owners can keep up to date with their car's maintenance schedule via the vehicle status monitor in the information section of that Mazda Connect multimedia system screen, which briefs you on the time of your next service and various maintenance issues. Or you could manage this via that useful My Mazda app, which can give you reminders about servicing and through which you can book your car in at your local dealership and access a digitally stored record of your model's service history. We should also mention the warranty, the usual unremarkable 3-year 60,000 mile package. If you want to extend that, you can do so via optional Essential, Elite and Complete plans. Included in the standard package is a 3-year paintwork warranty and 12 years of anti-perforation cover. In addition, there's a Mazda Accident Aftercare scheme, which sees the company liaise with your insurer after an accident, making sure that you have access to a courtesy car if you need one, and ensuring that all repairs are carried out to full Mazda standards. The British government is nowhere near its targets in terms of public charging installation for the EV community, and prices of electric vehicles seem to rise daily, as do our electricity costs. Given that, we wouldn't blame you for temporarily putting off the switch to a full EV and opting for something planet-friendly, but a little more real-world usable in the meantime. Something like this MX-30 e-Skyactiv R-EV. You can tell your friends it's basically an EV because it basically is. You can plug it in, an electric motor, not an engine, drives the wheels, and for commuting folk, the EV range is long enough to make fuel station visits an extreme rarity. Yet, when you need the peace of mind of fossil fuel propulsion, it's there for you. The perfect combination? Some will certainly see this Mazda that way. Why on earth would you pay nearly as much for a range-restrictive full electric MX-30 over this variant? Answers on a postcard, please.